Mom, what's that over there? When I returned home from my parents' house with my daughter, we were met with piles of trash bags in front of the entrance. As we approached, I realized that these bags contained my daughter's and my belongings, carelessly packed as if they were actual trash. Confused, I exclaimed, "What's this? Why is this happening?" My daughter tearfully pulled out her beloved stuffed animal from one of the bags and hugged it tightly. Frustrated, I marched towards the entrance, only to find that the locks had been changed while we were out. It became apparent that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were behind this. Ringing the doorbell and knocking several times yielded no response. "What is this? Isn't it terrible?" I muttered. Upon closer inspection, one of the trash bags had a note that read, "Parasites disappear, never come back." A surge of anger welled up within me, and I couldn't help but express my frustration aloud. "The real parasites are you," I muttered. This was the worst treatment I had ever received from my in-laws in 15 years. Not only me, but making my daughter feel this way too was unbearable. My patience exhausted, boiling with anger, I loaded our belongings into the car, and we returned to my parents' house. "I will never come back to this house again," I declared. "I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the parasites when their host is gone." My name is Sarah. I am currently 43 years old. I live with my husband, daughter, and my husband's mother and sister. I can't say we live happily. I work from home, but this house is never peaceful. The issue lies with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Diane. They have disliked and ignored me for over 10 years. As my daughter, Tracy, grew up, it bothered me less and less. I mainly work as a personal consultant. I started as a fortune teller, but as my blog became popular, I began receiving more consultations on attracting customers, leading to my current job. I met my husband, Kent, through a friend's introduction when I was training to be a fortune teller. I work in sales at a pharmaceutical company, and I also do affiliate marketing as a side job, which is finally starting to take off. Kent gave me enthusiastic advice on attracting customers when I expressed my struggles with fortune telling. Attracted by his kindness, we started dating and got married a year later. At that time, our income wasn't great, but Kent always supported me. I'm so glad I married Kent. I truly felt this way. Living with my in-laws began about a year after I got married. It started when my father-in-law, who had been healthy until then, suddenly passed away. My mother-in-law felt insecure about the future and asked my husband to live with us. We agreed to live together in exchange for her taking care of the household chores. Initially, my mother-in-law welcomed our living together and was happy. I hoped we would get along well, but I was mistaken. 2 months later, she began completely ignoring me, perhaps dissatisfied with me not helping with the housework. Soon, my sister-in-law, Diane, also started ignoring me. I didn't mind being ignored, but the challenging aspect with my mother-in-law was her tendency to involve others. Not only did Diane, my sister-in-law, hear about it, but even neighbors and relatives were informed that my daughter-in-law stays at home, but says she's working, leaving all the housework to me. If I say even a little, she talks back 100-fold, so I just ignore her. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law would suggest to others, "You better not talk to her too. It'll be troublesome." As a result, people around the in-laws' house began giving me only tepid responses to my greetings. I felt isolated, and it became very difficult. Despite my pleas to stop spreading strange rumors, my words were completely ignored. Although my mother-in-law's attitude softened slightly when my daughter Tracy was born 2 years after we started living together, her overall stance towards me hardly changed. However, she was very fond of Tracy, and having her help with household chores and childcare was a huge relief as my work became busier. Around the same time, my husband Kent's side business started to struggle, and he seemed unable to adapt to changes in the affiliate marketing market. He approached me saying, "Sarah, can you increase your contribution to the monthly expenses a bit?" I agreed, expressing that my consultations were increasing, and the new methods I implemented were working well. Despite my willingness to collaborate on ways to boost his sales, Kent insisted on handling it independently, saying, "I think I'll try it on my own. I'm really sorry." From the beginning of our marriage, we had agreed that Kent would manage the household finances. Initially, my income was low, so he allowed me to contribute more when my sales increased. I transferred money to Kent based on my monthly earnings, and he provided a fixed amount for living expenses in cash. Initially, I could only contribute $100, but now I could transfer up to $1,000, though not every month. I could contribute more if I dipped into savings. I knew Kent was struggling with his side business, but his pride prevented him from consulting me. He began spending more time at caves after work, returning home later and later. When Tracy was about 5, Diane got married and moved out. Since she lived nearby, she often brought her son Ricky to our house during the day. When Ricky turned 1, Diane expressed her intention to start a part-time job. My mother-in-law gladly offered to take care of him until the evening. Diane was appreciative, saying, "Thank you, I'm so happy." However, as my mother-in-law began caring for Ricky at home, she became very fond of her grandson and started being cold towards Tracy. When they fought, my mother-in-law would scold Tracy, comparing her unfavorably to Ricky. Over time, Tracy started playing near me and began to dislike my mother-in-law's behavior. I spoke up, saying, "Talk to your mother. Tracy and Ricky are both her grandchildren. She should treat them the same. Tracy is already a big sister in elementary school." However, my mother-in-law's focus shifted, and she approached me saying, "Things are tough at the company right now. We might not get bonuses, so could you contribute a bit more?" Despite the challenges, my blog's client attraction was successful, and I started receiving more consultations as a consultant, earning far more than I did as a fortune teller. When Kent requested additional financial support, I responded, "I'm already contributing $2,000 a month. Isn't that enough?" "Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, but my salary has decreased and the side business isn't going well." "Don't be secretive. We're a couple. We should support each other in tough times." "I'm really ashamed." "Thank you." Later, the amount I contributed gradually increased, and eventually I was transferring $4,000 a month to Kent. Still not wanting to hurt his pride, I let Kent continue to manage the finances. When Tracy was in 6th grade, Diane came back home with Ricky. It seems Diane got divorced due to her infidelity, but I don't know the details. By this time, Tracy could help around the house, so household chores were divided among each family, being ignored by my mother-in-law, and Diane continued, but it no longer bothered me. It's unfortunate that I couldn't give Tracy her own room when she started middle school, as Diane's return meant we ran out of rooms. One night, while discussing which tutoring school Tracy should attend for middle school, Diane suddenly said, "Hey, tutoring is expensive. Why doesn't Tracy study by herself? Could you stop making such comments? I'm paying for the tutoring, so it's none of your business what Sarah's paying." "Impossible. You don't earn anything. Kent said he's supporting you. You're just a leech, aren't you? Ha ha, you married him because he has money, right?" "Exactly. Kent told me not to speak ill of Sarah, who can turn, but that's just shameless." My mind was filled with questions. What does this mean? What has Kent been telling his mother and the others? Kent is the one supporting this house financially. It's about time we put an end to the parasite's lifestyle. I feel bad for Tracy, but if we pay for her tutoring, we won't be able to pay my compensation. Not be able to pay? Are you saying our house is paying for your compensation, Diane? Kent said he would pay for it. You should spend your money on Ricky. I began to understand the deception and felt my anger rising. My husband had always managed our household finances, and my mother-in-law had taken care of the household chores and child care until Tracy grew up. So I thought they knew I was also contributing to the household expenses. Is Kent bearing all the expenses of this house, including your living expenses and the compensation Diane is supposed to pay? Be quiet. It's only natural for a family. You're the only outsider here, not related by blood, and yet you act as if living here is your right. It really makes me angry. I contribute money too. Don't talk back. What you contribute is barely enough for your own food expenses. You hardly have any income, and yet you're so arrogant. I could feel my body trembling with anger. I could see Tracy on the side, looking like she might cry. I knew Kent had a lot of pride, but I never thought it would be this bad. Certainly, in the beginning, Kent was paying for the living expenses and pocket money for my mother-in-law and Diane. But I had started contributing as well, and now we were living on my income. I needed to talk to Kent properly. Around midnight, Kent came home. He was drunk and seemed cheerful. Can we talk? I didn't know you weren't getting any money from your mother or Diane. They said you're covering all the expenses of this house. About that. My bad. It's a matter of pride as a man, you know. When we started living together, I was paying for everything. There wasn't a right moment to say you were also paying, and in front of the family, let me be the eldest son a little, please. Kent, with a light-hearted tone like in a comedy sketch, put his hands together. Oh, that's right. I'm going to come in this Saturday. I'll be gone for a week. Take care. Conan? Why? I got invited to a seminar in Conan by a friend I'm doing a side business with. I'm going to make it a success, so cheer for me, Sarah. Well, I'm off to sleep. See you tomorrow. My husband lay down on the mat in a cheerful mood and soon started snoring. My anger wouldn't subside, but recently, with Kent coming home late, we hadn't talked much, and I had no idea about this. I thought he was joking while drunk, but on the weekend, Kent really left with a large suitcase. During Kent's absence, I had the freedom to use the car, so I decided to take Tracy back to my parents' house. The next day, a shocking event awaited us. Mom, what is that? When Tracy and I returned from my parents' house, there were piles of trash bags in front of the entrance. Upon closer inspection, these bags contained mine and Tracy's belongings, carelessly packed just like real trash. What is this? Why is this happening? I don't understand. Tracy, crying, pulled out her beloved stuffed animal from the bag and hugged it. Furious, I headed towards the entrance. Has the lock changed? It seemed that the locks had been changed while we were out. This must be the work of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Diane. I rang the doorbell and knocked several times, but no one came out. What is this? Isn't it terrible? Upon closer inspection, one of the trash bags had a note saying, "Parasites disappear, never come back." I felt a surge of anger from the bottom of my heart. The real parasites are you. I couldn't help but let out a swear word. This was the worst treatment I had ever received from my in-laws in 15 years. Not just me, but making my daughter feel this way too. I finally lost my patience with boiling anger. I loaded the luggage into the car, and we returned to my parents' house. I will never come back to this house again. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the parasites when their host is gone. When we returned to my parents' house, they were shocked. I hadn't told them about the ignoring from my in-laws, the money issues, and most of all, their attitude towards Tracy. Not wanting to worry them, my parents said, "There's no need to go back to that house. You should claim compensation from them." They cried with anger and told me to stay with them. My mother's words, "You really had it tough," made me cry too. In reality, I had been trying my best all this time. Enough is enough. I finally decided to confront my feelings while staying at my parents' house. I contacted a friend who had introduced me to Kent. She was connected to Kent's side business friends. "Are you doing well? I want to ask you something. Do you know if Kent's friends are currently in Conan, that famous entrepreneur seminar, right?" I was invited but wasn't interested, so I declined. Kent didn't go, did he? Yeah, that's right. By the way, I heard Kent quit his job and is now managing a business with his wife. You two must be close. Yes, that's right. Nonchalantly, I replied and hung up immediately. After I called Kent's company, what my friend said was true, and to my surprise, Kent had quit his job 2 years ago. This meant that for the past 2 years, I had been paying almost all of the living expenses for my in-laws. Looking back over the years, I suddenly felt hollow. A week later, I received a laid-back message from Kent saying he was back in the US. After continuously ignoring him, I stopped hearing from him altogether. He must have heard the news back home. Expecting persistent contact from Kent, I hired a detective to investigate him. The investigation revealed that Kent, dressed in a suit in the morning, spent his afternoons gambling and evenings at a woman's house. So I asked for an investigation into his infidelity as well. 3 weeks later, Kent called me. It must have been close to his former company's payday, and he was panicking. "Sarah, sorry I couldn't contact you. I'm sorry for what my family did. I heard they kicked you out, and I was thinking, why did it come to this? Really? Did you tell the truth to your mother and Diane?" Kent quickly changed the subject and said something unbelievable. "Let's leave that house and live in a new home, just the three of us. I'll cut ties with those who disregard you, Sarah. I'm ready to abandon my mother and Diane, so please come back." Are you really cutting ties with your mother and Diane? Was Kent planning to easily discard them after making them dependent on him? I was disappointed in Kent and his self-centered actions, so I told him, "I'm coming back for now, so leave the door unlocked." Kent seemed delayed at my message. A few days later, I returned to my in-laws' house with Tracy. Kent, his mother, and Diane were there, but Ricky was nowhere to be seen. I was relieved that Ricky didn't have to witness the adults' ugly arguments. When Kent made some remarks, I ignored the displeased pair and took out a divorce form from my bag. I confronted the surprised Kent. "I heard you quit your job without telling me. Since we're supposedly managing a business together, does that mean the $4,000 I've been transferring every month was actually your salary?" Kent tried to excuse himself. "No, that's not it. I told you the business was in trouble, right? So, I decided to quit before getting fired. Carly, I heard you quit 2 years ago, right? I called your company, and it's still not bankrupt." Kent fell silent. I pressed further. "By the way, what role do you play in our joint business management? Are you the accountant?" Kent became increasingly uneasy and started sweating. "Kent is supporting the whole family, isn't he, Mother? He quit his job, his side business isn't going well, and yet it's a mystery where the money is coming from. I'm leaving, but please continue to get financial support from Kent." My mother-in-law and Diane's faces turned pale and ashen. "But the other day on the phone, you were crying and begging to save only yourself, saying you'd cut ties with your mother and sister." "Haha, but that won't happen. I'm also discarding Kent here." "What do you mean? I don't understand." "Kent hasn't been going to work. That's a lie. He leaves in a suit, and Sarah was supporting the household. It's true. Sarah has been paying for everything for years. I'm unemployed now and not doing any side business. We're going to have a hard life because you guys kicked Sarah out. We could have had an easy life without working if you hadn't done anything unnecessary." "What do you mean by that? You were planning to abandon us, weren't you?" Kent's response ignited the fury of my mother-in-law and Diane. As the three of them caused a commotion, Tracy and I began to take action. "I came to pick up some forgotten items. I took a cleaning robot bought within the last 6 months, an expensive microwave favored by my mother-in-law, and the beauty device Diane had gotten from Kent. Wait, that's mine. This is mine since I bought it with my money, or you can pay me back for it." Diane fell silent at my words. Then I searched for and gathered my belongings from their rooms. The belongings they had put out did not include my expensive brand bags and accessories. "Why are you taking that too? This is mine." I ignored their complaints and sweet talk. Finally, I dropped a bombshell on Kent. "Oh, I forgot. I plan to claim compensation from your mistress, Mary, too. Tell her it's no use running away." "What? How do you know about her?" "I know you went to Conan with Mary recently. Good for you, right?" "Of course. I have all the evidence of the affair, so no escaping that." "No way. You've been deceiving me and having fun for the past 2 years." I'll be claiming compensation for the affair, child support for Tracy, and oh, you were secretly paying Diane's compensation too. I'll be claiming that back as well. As I prepared to leave, my mother-in-law and Diane desperately tried to stop me. I was wrong, Sarah. I'm sorry. We just believed what Ken said. We can't live without you. We'll do anything. Please help us. I can't pay you back for the compensation. I'm sorry too. I apologize for everything. You'll forgive us, right? I couldn't help but laugh at their foolish faces. They finally realized who had been supporting their lifestyle, realizing too late that their non-blood related support was gone. Let's just ignore these people, Mom. Let's go home. Yes, that's right. Kent, you'll be hearing from the lawyer soon. Please take care of it. Leaving a dejected Kent behind, we returned home with the items we had collected. Later, my divorce with Kent was finalized, and I demanded compensation through a lawyer. I received numerous apologies and pleas for reconciliation from my mother-in-law and Diane, but I ignored them all. Surprisingly, there was still some inheritance left from Ken's father. The fact that they had been living off my money without using their own angered me again. However, the inheritance wasn't enough for the compensation, and ultimately, they had to sell the house to make a lump sum payment. Naturally, this included the compensation I had been paying for Diane. After selling the house, I don't know what became of Ken's family. I hope Ken can take care of his family, but ultimately, he will choose his path. I also claimed compensation from Kent's mistress, which led to an unexpected revelation. Through the lawyer, I informed her that Kent was unemployed, and I had been supporting the family. Kent had deceived her, claiming he was an entrepreneur with a successful business. In the end, they broke up after an argument. Tracy and I moved to an apartment, and I was able to give her the room she had longed for. I don't think my 15 years were wasted, but sometimes I wonder if I should have made a decision when I started being ignored. Now, I feel happy that my home is a peaceful place.